Effectively, refugees or international asylum seekers are coming into the country and the government are obliged to house them. And for the last 2 years, the government have been contracting furiously with hotels and guest houses.
Right now, as a business, my mother's business, 56 years, it's on its knees. We need help.
It's quite attractive if the government picks up the phone to you and says, listen, will you take a 2-year contract to look after refugees and asylum seekers, and here is a check to go along with it.
At any stage, is somebody going to say, follow the money? Who's making money out of this? How is this after happening? How have we now got access to all this money?
I would call it a humanitarian crisis now, but I suppose anyone who's been following how the government treats the most vulnerable in society won't be surprised by this.
I think people who say that a country's first duty is to control and manage its own borders and secure its own borders are reasserting the basic purpose of the nation state since the concept was established. They're not saying anything new or radical or dangerous.
There are also people out there who who hate people because they're from a different country or because their skin is a different colour.
Freedom of speech is almost gone in relation to these sort of things, that you cannot stand up and say what the concerns are that your local constituents have. Like, it's scary to see that happening.
It feels like, look, we are essentially paying for our own services to be taken away.
These people are not vetted. They're coming here. They're brought into the IP centres to be assessed.
Please understand that if you bring more people to Killarney, you're only going to shut down more businesses because we just don't have any room anymore.
Ireland is full. People of Ireland have always had the nature of being very good to give. There's only so much you can give and there's only so much you can take.
Ireland is facing an immigration crisis at the moment, with communities right across the country struggling and services under pressure. The government says it has a plan, but is it too little too late?
The latest data we have comes from Fáilte Ireland, which is the state agency for tourism, and that shows that 20%, at least 20% of all tourism beds throughout the country are now contracted to the state for either Ukrainian refugees or international asylum seekers. So that's having a profound impact on the tourism economy, because you've got tourism towns up and down the length and breadth of the country without adequate tourism beds, and therefore they'll have very little tourism activity this summer. That 20% figure, is nationwide, but there are certain counties where it's actually far higher.
Killarney is just the best place in the world to live. It's the best place in the world to grow up. I played soccer out in the street there as a kid with my brothers. I just love it. I love this town. Killarney is very unique. Our industry is tourism. And the small hotels, the small bars, the small cafes, and the Jarvies and the taxi drivers, that's how they make their business, through tourism. My mum and dad have it since 1968, so 55, 56 years in the family business. But in 56 years, I can't see right now, and it's going to be a struggle, how we get to the 1st of May, to the tourism season, to try and get going again. Never been in this situation before, and we're not the only people.
We call ourselves the tourist capital of the world. Some people say we're only the tourist capital of Ireland, but it's synonymous. It's generation after generation, decade after decade, family after family that have put Killarney on the map worldwide. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've, everywhere's taken a big hit, but in the last 2 years in particular, we've seen lose a lot of accommodation to immigration, refugees, asylum seekers coming in, and it's about 40%, a mix-up of, say, hotels, hostels, guest houses, and private homes as well. The reality of that is very simple. If you take 40% of the footfall out of a town, then you've got 40% less business on the high street.
Footfall is gone. So that 40% of people walking down the street into a small cafe and buying a coffee, or a family coming to Killarney for the week and they're going for dinner 1 or 2 nights and they're coming into the Fáilte because we've music on, and buy a pint, and Dad will buy a pint and Mum will take the kids down the street and they'll buy an ice cream and they'll come back and collect Dad. Those days are gone. And it's directly because of decisions you as a government have made. And I understand the decisions the government have made. But if you're pouring all this money into the people who are actually providing the accommodation, and that's well and good, that's your decision to go into that, what about helping out the businesses that haven't and are trying to survive?
Ireland has always been renowned for 3 things. One is the culture, one is the people, and the other is the scenery. So I think that Céad Míle Fáilte is particularly important. And I think if you have tourism towns, particularly along the Wild Atlantic Way, which don't have tourism activity, it changes the fundamentals of those towns, and that's of concern to us.
I'm seeing it already myself. Last year I had 2 groups that came in every Friday, and now all of a sudden they couldn't get accommodation. So that's 60 to 80 people I'm down every Friday from March till the end of September. And that's just me, that's just one tour operator. So that 60 to 80 paid for so much of my costs. And then couple that with the way costs have gone through the roof now at the moment. I mean, anybody thinking of getting into our game is, I'd seriously sit down, have a right chat with you over a pint or two and say, think about it twice.
Right now, as a business, my mother's business, 56 years, it's on its knees. And I don't know how to lift it off its knees because it's beyond me and it's beyond a normal politician in the area to affect what has happened here in Killarney. But still the best town in the world to live in, best town in the world to do business in, but we need help. My mother, she's crying, like, she's upset. Everyone in Killarney knows my mum and everybody in Killarney knows how hard she works. I wish I could have her work ethic. I wish my family, my brothers could have her work ethic. She's an amazing lady. So I feel, when I sit down with my mother, I feel the system has left her down.
Effectively, refugees or international asylum seekers are coming into the country, they land in the country, and the government are obliged to house them. And for the last 2 years, the government have been contracting furiously with hotels and guest houses and accommodation providers around the country to try and place refugees and asylum seekers there. We were told at the time that this was a short-term solution, and the tourism and hospitality sector is obviously prepared to play its part. But unfortunately, we're 2 years, 18 months later, and still more and more hotels and guest houses are being taken out of the equation. So our fear is that it's become a medium to long-term solution. We've always argued that refugees and international asylum seekers should be housed in alternative accommodation.
We're talking about a property here in town that could facilitate up to 1,000 people. The logical thing is to take 1,000 out of the hotels that have them, put them up there, so we've still got the 1,000 people here, but now we've freed up the space for tourism and the town kicks off again.
This building is iconic. It's on the top of Killarney, it's overlooking the stadium. It's been derelict and empty for the last 20 years. You could have it up and running by now if you wanted to spend some of the money that you're spending on some of these hotels on doing it up. But the key to that is, if you do it, and if you do up all these buildings around the country, solution again, easy solution, all the money you're spending, and you do up all of these buildings, so when the war is over and the Ukrainian people go back to their country, then we can use those buildings for social and affordable housings. Or we can put in people into apartments that we've a housing list in Killarney of 1,600 people. So you're not actually throwing dead money after dead money by giving it into a hotel and giving them 6 or 7 or 8 million a year and you're getting nothing at the end of it. You're going to have something tangible in every town in Ireland if you just think outside the box. I feel like when I'm talking about it that I'm trying to move the Titanic in a bath.
Tourism accommodation providers, particularly in regional Ireland, it's quite attractive if the government picks up the phone to you and says, listen, will you take a 2-year contract to look after refugees and asylum seekers, and here is a check to go along with it. They have 100% occupancy. They don't have to deal with the sort of the general day-to-day concerns of a business. The impact really is on the downstream tourism economy. So the cafes, the restaurants, the pubs, the tourist attractions in that particular town, they don't have the tourists or the visitors in that area, and therefore they're out of income.
The more places that close, the more people you're putting on social welfare and the more strain you're going to have in the economy. I'm scratching my head at times wondering where all the money's coming from because, you know, 10 years ago this country was broke and we had the Troika coming in the door. Now there's money everywhere.
Approximately €2 billion was spent last year. It's a very significant amount of state money. It is, I suppose, a reflection of the very real crisis that we were facing in terms of a need to accommodate. None of us expected to be dealing with a war on the European continent. But I think it also shows the risk that's been built into our accommodation system over the last 20 years, where you have that absolute reliance on the commercial sector.
This is why people in the private sector find it so hard to understand how you can squander so much money in the public sector and have zero accountability. So do we just blow all this money? 5 years ago, we didn't have enough money to fill a pothole. At any stage, is somebody going to say, follow the money? Who's making money out of this? How is this after happening? How have we now got access to all this money? And I need to fix a problem outside of my street and we can't do it, we don't have the money to do it. I think the government, without making a big hullabaloo about it are going to have to slash the rate because it's an insane rate that they're giving the accommodation providers. I do think you're going to see the small business person, i.e. me, and I'm saying it now, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more pressure coming on those accommodation providers to go, look, best of luck, and you did great, and well done, and you've had 2 great years. But you're absolutely smothering the town. You're killing the town you tell me you love. And I think the government know that they're under pressure. They know that they've made an absolute mess of this.
It's having a profound impact on towns and communities right around the country, not just from a tourism perspective, which is obviously the area I'm most interested in, but also GPs, childcare facilities, schools. You know, it's really having a profound impact across society as a whole.
Killarney's full. We've done our fair share. Everybody's welcomed. I really understand we need to look after people, but I also understand we need to look after the people living in the town, and the social fabric of the town needs to be kept the same. And you can't do that if, for example, I know my local doctor, he's my friend, and it takes me 3.5 weeks to get in there.
A family coming to town will have difficulty finding a GP or getting registered with a practice. When I started in practice, there were 6 GPs in the area. There were 3 last year, there are 2 this year, and one of those 2 is retiring this year. So they're going to be left with 1 GP, 7,500 of a local population. There are just over 400 international protection applicants in Killarney in 4 different centres. There are over 2,000 Ukrainian visitors in different centres around Killarney within the town, and there's a further 1,000 in the Killarney hinterland that would be serviced by Killarney. For the first time ever, that accompanied by the under 6s and the under 8s medical cards have created waiting lists in general practice that were never there before. There was no consultation, there was no preparation, there was no contact from anybody until these people arrived on our doorstep. I feel the government, the department, has been reckless in the numbers that they have put in Killarney. They have taken no regard whatsoever to the downward effect, of the downslope effect, the ripple effect that they're having on smaller businesses in the town and on the tourism. That is a crisis just on our doorstep.
Take 1 minute to think, what have I done to negate the fact that I've taken 40% of the business off the street in Killarney? What have I done to help the businesses who have actually stuck to the tourism trade and are trying to survive?
Last week, the government published the comprehensive accommodation strategy, which sets out how we deal with the immediate crisis in terms of not being able to offer accommodation to everybody seeking international protection right now, but also sets out a way of reforming our international protection accommodation system, moving away from the over-reliance on commercial providers. Over the next number of months, we'll be ending contracts with providers of Ukrainian accommodation, and that will allow hotels move back into the tourism sector.
So right now we're at the International Protection Office. This is the first place where asylum seekers will come whenever they land in Ireland and they're seeking asylum. They come here with their documents to register for asylum, and then they're supposed to receive accommodation on arrival. As you can see, that's not happening. This is unlawful. There are legal requirements to find accommodation for people, and you know, there's already been a case in Ireland and another case in the European Court of Justice, you know, that is challenging this situation.
Through the Refugee Convention, which has been transposed into Irish law and what's called the International Protection Act, we have an obligation to consider an application for international protection. And that's a fundamental legal obligation. It's in the Refugee Convention, it's in European Union law, and it's also in our own domestic law. There is also, and this is really important and it's very current, we also have a legal obligation to provide what are called reception conditions. And that would involve accommodation, basic accommodation, and access to washing facilities and food.
I would call it a humanitarian crisis now. There are 3 and 4 people per tent because as an organisation trying to help on a very practical level, we can't supply enough tents for everybody. So the problems are increasing in terms of like sanitation, even just being able to find a toilet, never mind a bathroom. There is no toilet available on site here. You are just heaping more trauma on people who are already extremely traumatised, who've already made desperate journeys to get here in the first place, fleeing war, fleeing persecution, fleeing torture. And you come to a country that's supposed to be a first world country, one of the richest countries per capita in the Western world, and then you're met with this hostility, you know, from the government. It's really shocking. Irish people are shocked as well. They're only learning and they're only realising that this is happening. But I suppose anyone who's been following how the government treats the most vulnerable in society won't be surprised by this.
It's a really shocking situation, and frankly, I didn't think we'd see that on the streets of Dublin in Ireland. We believe that the government response to this situation is completely inadequate. We think that there is accommodation within the system. People were taken off the streets after it snowed for 3 nights and then put back out onto the streets, and that was appalling. It showed that there was accommodation capacity there.
I'm well aware that there are 160,000 state empty buildings. 160,000 empty buildings that could easily, overnight, house our own Irish homeless, could house the 14,000 homeless people who are in emergency accommodation. But those facts, of course, aren't ever illuminated by the government, because the government is responsible for making the homes, allowing the homes to be empty and dormant and vacant in the first place. Right beside here, the juxtaposition of tents and an empty building is something to behold.
Tents are cleared from Mount Street, where up until this morning around 200 international protection applicants had been living, many of them still containing personal belongings.
They're like sitting ducks because they're so exposed. You know, there's absolutely no protection in a tent. A tent can be slashed, and some of them have been.
In every level, in every step, I found really hard pushback. I ran for many people, hard for us as black and brown people, really tough.
I was talking to a man here yesterday, and he told me he's from India and he's criminal, that this government wants him. So you are out here supporting people like that, but yet you just won't go in and help our own people on the streets. And he's having a fucking laugh. And he's actually all right as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why people are so angry. I'm not the only one. You can point that all like you like at me as well.
But why are you angry? What are you angry about?
That there's unvetted migrants in our country. That's why the Irish people are angry. Get that out of me face before I break it.
Does that happen all the time?
Yeah, usually.
How does that make you feel?
I feel these people little lower educated people, then should be something change in education. We can't change them, discuss on the street. This is a bigger issue.
Do you understand maybe why Irish people and why people are like that?
There is fear to lose more. These people lose many things. Cost of living too high, rent is too high, families struggling, and somebody come and poor like them, then they think they will lose more.
We already are living in a situation where there's huge poverty. There's 13% of the Irish population are living in poverty, and that is utterly wrong for a country that is also so wealthy. There's just something, the divide is growing, and I think it really feeds any fear amongst people who don't have very much in the first place, and it's creating that kind of punch down mentality and culture.
We're extremely concerned by the far right. However, they are a tiny, tiny group of people. The vast majority of people across Ireland know that they stand for hatred and racism, and they have no place in our societies.
Down here at the migrant camp, where the news media are acting like they care. How are you, Mussy? Have you not been arrested in Turkey yet? You're still wanted in Turkey. Have you nothing to say to that? Don't make threats to me. Excuse me, I can hear you. No, you just hear. You don't care about the Irish homeless. You jumping on the bandwagon. You don't care about the Irish people. You are here jumping on the bandwagon. No, we need homes for the Irish 14,000 Irish homeless families. No, you don't. You heard about these people. Why don't you go out in Finglas on the M50, there's people in tents. How come you don't go out to them? Because you're here looking for publicity. Just like Jan O'Riordan was. Yeah, you don't care about the Irish homeless. Look at this. Bunch of freeloaders. All the NGOs coming down looking for these people. Yous are all looking freeloaders.
I mean, we talk about the rise of the far right in Ireland. I think it's overblown, but I think if the political class was actively setting out to create an opposition on the extreme fringes around immigration, they couldn't be doing a better job. If they were trying to do that, I don't know what they'd be doing differently. But I also think that it's been massively overblown by a political class that has been eager to blame anything else but their own policy for it. Paul Murphy named 3 or 4 individuals in the Oireachtas recently. I think if the political class genuinely believes that 75% of people are expressing concern on this issue because of those 3 or 4 named individuals, then the political class is in a state of utter delusion.
We know who incited this riot. We know who called for people to come out on the streets. At 2:16, a white supremacist, Mick O'Keefe, issued his first tweet. He followed off at 2:50, saying that a foreign man entered the school and stabbed 5 children, said that the kids are dead. Fergus Power tweeted at 2:55, a 5-year-old girl is alleged to have passed away. This better get people off their arses and out onto the streets. Philip Dwyer, a creche creeper and dog kicker, streamed a video at 4:04 saying he was going to be in town at 6 o'clock. Gavin Pepper, another far-right agitator, called people onto the streets for 7 o'clock in town. Derek Bly had a video saying we are at war, echoing the words of Conor McGregor. We know who called people out.
We are really concerned by the opposition that exists, and we would also say, though, that we think there's a very clear distinction to be made by people who would be going so far as to commit arson, people who would be outside an accommodation centre where people are actually living. We think that's a line that shouldn't be crossed, as opposed to people who have concerns about the situation, who have questions, who want answers. I think there is a significant role and responsibility on government to communicate better.
I recognise where we're opening new accommodation, there's a diverse range of views. Some people want information, some people disagree with government policy, and people are entitled to disagree with government policy, and they're entitled to express that either through protest or indeed through the electoral system. But there are also people out there, and you only have to look online, who hate people because they're from a different country or because their skin is a different colour. And I think we shouldn't be afraid to call that out and recognise that these people are spreading a huge amount of incorrect information, disinformation, lies about what's happening in our country right now.
The media talks about the far right. The media talks about it endlessly. The political class talked about it endlessly. I think the talk about the far right contributed to a lot of the degree to which people aren't listening to politicians on this issue, because there was a while there where it felt to a lot of people like any dissent at all risked putting you on the far right. And I think there are people in this country who say a very simple proposition. We're for immigration. We've had migrants coming into this country for years. Since the Nice Treaty and the enlargement of the European Union, we have tens of thousands of Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian, Romanian people from those accession states living here. It never had an issue. But I believe in my heart that immigration should be controlled and managed and aligned with the resources that we have available. I don't think those people are far right. I think people who say that a country's first duty is to control and manage its own borders and secure its own borders are reasserting the basic purpose of the nation state since the concept was established. They're not saying anything new or radical or dangerous.
Gardaí have carried out searches at 4 properties in Roscahill in County Galway as part of their investigation into a fire at a hotel there.
They started off and they opened our borders completely and let the place be flooded. So now we're in a situation where we are full to the brim and we're overflowing. In December, we got an email, ourselves as councillors, as elected representatives, all got an email telling us the department were bringing some iPads refugees down to a local hotel in our area in Roscahill. Straight away, my phone anyway started going crazy because there was an awful lot of the local residents there who were all concerned in relation to this, because we were told at that stage even that this was 70 young males that were coming into the area. It wasn't families or anything else, it was 70 young males. It's a very rural area, it's not fit for purpose to be putting people into cramming them in, say 4 people in every room in a rural hotel in the middle of no place with no services. No, that's basically what we said. That hotel had a fond memories for all of us in the community. I said I had my own wedding reception in that hotel, and many other people around the area had too, and christenings and everything else. And I got a phone call again to tell me that the hotel was on fire. We've seen this has happened in several places around the country at this stage where premises have been burnt, and I think from Gardaí's investigation it's probably obvious enough that it is arson. But at the same time, isn't it terrible to think that if it was a local person, that they were forced, you know, they felt like as if they were forced into a situation where there was no other solution for them but to do something like that. It's terrible. It was on the morning of the 6th of January. At 6 o'clock in the morning, we were awoke by the sound of the doorbell ringing, the front door banging. There was banging on the windows, there was shouting going on, there was flashlights shining in through our windows. And when we opened the curtains to see, it was the Gardaí that was there. They had a search warrant for my house, so I asked to see the search warrant and they showed it to me. And I said, well, OK, you can get on with your work, so there's nothing else I can do about this. And then they proceeded to carry out a search throughout our house. I don't think I've ever seen in the history of the state, where there's been a search warrant granted for an elected representative's house. It's kind of the most draconian set of measures I've ever come across. And it's a funny feeling to be, for somebody, an upstanding citizen like myself, to be treated like a criminal is quite shocking. That phrase, I said, the inn is full. I stand by that 100%, and actually I'd go further. I'd go further as to say that the inn is actually overflowing completely, and it's completely out of control altogether. Freedom of speech is almost gone in relation to these sort of things, that you cannot stand up and say what the concerns are that your local constituents have. It's scary to see that happening.
Are they getting off the bus up there?
Yeah, the armed response are there.
Meaning?
There's a man with a suitcase walked by me, that's not a family.
Yeah.
Another single fucking man. Another single fucking man.
You know it is.
That's fucking terrible now.
Look,
he's kicking me! He's kicking me! Come back, fucking scumbags kicking me into me back! Come back.
I'm videoing it! Leave him alone! I'm videoing it! Craig, I'm videoing it! I'm videoing it, Craig!
A fucking big man! How you back in the back? I told me I took the fucking
Look at this!
Get your fucking hands up!
There's genuine concern here. There's people here that are passionate about their families, about their communities and about their town. So there has been no far right here, there has been no agenda, there has been no organisations. These are just concerned citizens of Roscrea.
They were bullying us. We were standing peacefully. One man got pulled into a paddy wagon for no reason. That was a fully functional, operational hotel till last Thursday evening. Our town is dying. You only have to go in and look at many shops are closed on the main street. And that's it.
The biggest losers of it all is Roscrea and the people of Roscrea. At the moment there, I think it's 7 bedrooms that are available for B&B in Roscrea, a town that's serving 6,500 people. Some people would say they're trying to turn Roscrea into a ghost town. Roscrea has been very welcome, and we have near on 400 Ukrainians who moved into what is known as the old convent building. It was a former school, a huge school. There's another refugee centre in Roscrea with well over 100 males in it. For the size of Roscrea and the services in Roscrea, Roscrea has more than helped and done its share. We just didn't need any more. And the big problem is we just can't cater for any more. Like most other towns and villages around the country, our services were very poor. Go back 4 or 5 years ago. Now we have this influx of people and we didn't get any more services. I don't believe the government ever had a plan. Now, maybe they got taken by surprise, the numbers that were coming into the country, but Like any of us, you can always put your hand and say, stop, we can't take any more.
If you look at a town that has had, for example, its hotel effectively closed, as in closed to the public, closed to the services that it provided, and then somebody has come in and either bought that hotel or taken it away from them in return for a very lucrative contract, paid for or the very same taxes that the people in that town are paying, that feels like, I think to many people, a government assault on the citizen. It feels like, look, we are essentially paying for our own services to be taken away.
So I was literally sitting at my desk working away, and it popped up on Facebook. Councillor Burke had a notification up that we were expecting 50 IP applicants, all male, to move into Ballinrobe on the Monday morning. Ballinrobe's such a small town, small community, but what are 50 males going to do standing on that street day in, day out, 2 feet away from a creche?
50 males are going to stand and hover outside this street, on Main Street, day in and day out. This is Ballinrobe. It's a commuter town. It's a brilliant town with brilliant people and brilliant businesses. Woo! But I, for one, if this happens, my daughter will not walk down the street, and I will not walk down.
I laugh about it now because Helen McAleer was interviewed, and so was Leo Varadkar. Firstly, on Saturday, in his interview, he said, Ballinrobe will have to realise, and other communities, that they have no veto to decide who goes and who comes out of their community, or who lives there. So I had a video ready to go of the creche and down the back.
So this is what us, as a community here in Ballinrobe, are protecting. This is the play school. This is the building where 50 meals are going to be placed.
Then the next thing, Leo Varadkar goes on the news at 6 o'clock and says, well, actually, we decided on Thursday that it would be families. So that's why I'm kind of giggly about that, because we did overturn the government. And Helen McAleer can go blue in the face, so can Leo Varadkar, but we overturned them, and other communities are following suit now.
The terrifying thing for the government on this issue is that it's not one demographic. It is people who feel that their communities are being changed fundamentally without their consent, without them ever having voted for that change. And the government has responded to that with slogans that I think have exacerbated the issue in a terrible way. They've said things like, nobody has a veto on who lives in their community. But that's not true. It's not true in any other situation. If for example, a developer came into a local town and proposed to build 300 new homes, the local people very much do have not a veto, but a right to protest and a right to take that through a legal process that can, as people looking for a home know, last for years. And yet, when it comes to this particular issue, all those same rights to, object or have an input into the process have been trampled over, which is exacerbating the anger.
We were always open to people that genuinely needed help. And when I seen the little family come out on the Tuesday, I broke down, because you had a mummy and daddy, a wee girl about 4, and the other little girl about 7 or 8. And I said, this is why we done what we done. It was never about racism or being left-wing or being right-wing. It was about genuine concern for getting the people that needed help. We didn't want to paint that picture of any sort of racism or this being related to crime. But the realistic opinion of people here, including myself that have businesses, is these people are not vetted. They're coming here, they're brought into the IP centres to be assessed. And it was all in all the safety of the kids, the businesses, and people would not go to the town. Let's be realistic. They would not walk down the street of the town with 50 males there.
We're proud as an organisation to work with people seeking protection, and that includes women and children and families, but it also includes single men. I've been doing this work for more than 20 years, and some of the most vulnerable people I've ever worked with are men. I can assure you that within 48 hours of somebody arriving in Ireland, the authorities would know more about that person than they would ever know about you or I. They would, if I apply for asylum in Ireland, I'd be interviewed at Dublin Airport. I'd be directed to Mount Street, to the International Protection Office on Mount Street, and at that office I would have my fingerprints taken from me. Those fingerprints would be checked on what's called the Eurodac database, I'd be subject to a preliminary interview where my name, age, address, family details would be taken from me. So there's a huge amount of information that's taken from somebody within a short period of time in the country. We just don't, it's not borne out in reality, the idea that we have unvetted people coming here.
The countries of origin for asylum seekers have remained pretty much the same over the last 5 years, but the numbers have increased dramatically. So Georgia, Algeria, Syria, a wide range of kind of African countries in smaller numbers. The vast majority enter the country on commercial flights, typically from another European country. A smaller number would be trafficked into the country, and we've seen some evidence of this in recent months with people being found in the back of containers. Under international law and Irish law, everyone has a right to seek international protection in Ireland. But what a lot of people do is they will destroy their passports en route to Ireland because, rightly or wrongly, they worry they will be sent back immediately if they have their travel documents with them.
I think to the average person, if you said to them that I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow and I'm going to go to John F. Kennedy Airport in New York and I'm going to rock up to the security guard there and say, I don't have a passport, I don't have any documents, the average person would not expect to be greeted in John F. Kennedy by the state saying, oh, well, come with us and we'll put you in accommodation overnight, without any kind of security oversight in many cases. I don't think that's how people would expect the system to work if they went to the US in that respect. And I think people are utterly baffled, from people who expect the state to be the sort of agent of state security. That's baffling.
People may dispose or not produce the document upon arrival in Ireland. And the reason for that, in our experience, is that people are scared. People are scared that if they produce the document, they would be immediately put on the next plane home.
It is a crime to arrive at immigration control without a passport. Historically, it's been very rarely prosecuted because it's considered a minor crime. It carries a small sentence. It will require a large amount of administrative work. We have seen an increase, and indeed there's been some recent cases of judges coming down quite heavily on people who have entered into the country without a passport.
My colleague Ben Scanlon put a question to Taoiseach last year on this, pointing out that ultimately coming into the country without documents is a crime under Irish law, and how many prosecutions had been taken. And at that point, the answer was none. So this was a law that the state was simply choosing not to apply. I'm sure with very good intentions. I'm absolutely certain that the conviction was, look, these are vulnerable people, we shouldn't be persecuting them or whatever. But ultimately, that's not a choice that the state can make. These laws are on the statute books for a reason, and there's somebody somewhere is making a decision not to enforce them. And as a result, it is highly likely, in my view, and I think in many other people's view, that there are people around the world looking at this and saying, this is a country you can go to, show up with no passport, and good things will happen.
The government has a list of safe countries, one of them being Georgia, which doesn't have widespread persecution or widespread human rights abuses like a country such as Somalia or Afghanistan, say. And what that means is people applying for asylum who are from those countries, those applications can be heard a lot faster. In most cases, those claims will be denied, the historical figures show, so those people can then be issued with a deportation order.
The government use this line in relation to self-deportation all the time, where they say, look, loads of people self-deport. And then you ask them how many, and they say loads. And that's because the truth is they don't know. I mean, they may well be correct. It may well be that the majority of people who receive a deportation order self-deport. Because it is true, and a point that I think is not made enough, is that once you receive a deportation order, you no longer get any benefits or accommodation or anything like that. So in fairness to them, they have a case to make where they can say, look, life becomes quite difficult once you have a deportation order. But again, I think the public look at that and say, well, what's your job? If somebody has been committed to prison by a judge, the judge doesn't just say, okay, well, get in your car there and drive down to Portlaoise and commit yourself. You're escorted from the courtroom to the prison by prison officers. But if somebody has been told they must leave the country, literally what happens is the judge says, well, now you have to go buy yourself a plane ticket and go home. There's a huge gulf in how we deal with those two issues.
The official figures for deportation are not very helpful for telling us how many people are actually leaving the country or being deported from the country. Only a small fraction of people are actually physically deported. For the most part, the government rely on people to self-deport. Now, how many people self-deport, we simply don't know.
In our experience and from working with people in that situation, very few people would actually do that. And they do that because they're scared. They do that because they believe that if they went back to their country, they would be at risk. They have built up connections here in Ireland. They also may not be able to return to their country. They may not have the documentation to do so. So if somebody doesn't remove themselves, then the government, the authorities have the power to remove somebody back to their country. In reality, there has been little and few deportations in Ireland, and that would be consistent with other European Union countries. There's certainly been an increase in the number of people seeking protection in Ireland. If we'd been having this conversation in, say, January of 2022, there was probably around 9,000 people who were in the accommodation system. Currently, there are 27,000 people in our accommodation system.
I think the problem that they have is that they keep thinking of this primarily as an issue of managing people in relation to their attitudes to race or foreigners or xenophobia, when it's not that. Fundamentally, people are seeing this as a mathematical issue in terms of we simply don't have the space to accommodate the number of people we're bringing in.
I suppose that the phrase Ireland is full has become kind of a catchphrase nearly for the anti-immigrant, anti-asylum seeker kind of movement over the last year, in the sense that the system is under intense pressure. I suppose it's true, but the other side of it is that the country relies on immigration to a massive extent to run not just its health service, but lots of other industries as well. So the idea that Ireland is full as a society, as a country, as an economy is patently false.
Generally, we have huge amounts of land in Ireland. We have significant amounts of derelict properties that could be used. And also, and this is a point that we always try to make, is that our accommodation recommendations for refugees and people seeking asylum do not, we believe, stray into or take away accommodation from the mainstream population, including from homeless services. So it's nothing more than a false hashtag ultimately, and yeah, we just don't, it doesn't meet reality.
In the case of Ireland is full, it resonates because it sums up the fact for people that this is not an issue of race, bigotry, or anything like that. It's an issue of capacity.
Like at some stage, somebody needs to do the maths. Some stage, somebody needs to be made accountable. Some stage, somebody needs to be honest and stop playing politics with us. We're not stupid. It's affected. As I said, when you're backed up against the wall so much and you have to fight for your livelihood and you have to fight for your business, well then it doesn't matter what you call me anymore because I'm right.
And I think they need to get this under control and they need to strip it right back. I wouldn't be allowing anybody else now in until they sort out who genuinely needs help and who doesn't.
Please understand that if you bring more people to Killarney, you're only going to shut down more businesses because we just don't have any room anymore.
Ireland is full. I travel around the country a fair bit for work as well, and people of Ireland have always had the nature of being very good to give. There's only so much you can give and there's only so much you can take, and we've given as much as we can and we've taken as much as we can.
I recognise the system isn't fit for purpose, and that's why, as long as I've been in this department, I've worked to change it. It weighs on me where I see people on the streets because the state isn't able to provide for them. It weighs on me where we have to take very hard decisions in terms of using hotels in areas, particularly in areas where maybe it's the last hotel. That absolutely weighs on me. But ultimately, I believe we can reform our system. We can put in place a better means of accommodating people, and we can put in place a better system to process people's application.
This is going to have the greatest impact, I think, that any government has ever seen in relation when it comes to an election. But for some reason, their eyes are completely closed in relation to this issue, and they cannot see what their own local constituents are saying. And they're choosing to ignore it for some reason, but I can't make sense out of it, but all I know for sure is if it comes to the next general election, they are absolutely going to get a slaughtering like they've never got before.